The center of the City of Lights was in flames on Saturday. That's after protests over higher fuel taxes turned violent.
It's more than justified. We feel like we've been working for years now and it's just extortion, while the members of the government live like kings. That's unbearable when you're working.
Protests across the country broke out on November the 17th. The unrest peaked over the weekend in Paris. 8,000 people converged on the Champs-Élysées, intent on reaching President Emmanuel Macron's official residence. Police turned them back using tear gas, water cannons, and rubber bullets. In a tweet, Macron condemned the violence, saying,
"Thank you to our law enforcement for their courage and professionalism, but shame on those who attacked them. Shame on those who've abused other citizens and journalists. Shame on those who've tried to intimidate elected officials. No room for this violence in our republic."
Protesters say the higher taxes, which were imposed almost a year ago, have become too much of a burden.
I have a daughter who's 15 years old. Every day I work hard to feed her. This is about her future and the future of all our children, because it's not about us. It's the children and the grandchildren who come afterwards. We can't give up on them.
The government says the taxes are needed to encourage people to shift to cleaner forms of transport. That's in line with France's climate commitments. The government wants to end the sale of cars that run on petrol and diesel by 2040. By the same year, the government wants the country to stop extracting fossil fuels. Its eventual goal is to make France a carbon-neutral country by 2050. On Tuesday, Macron plans to unveil measures to soften the financial blow of his climate policies. His approval ratings are at a record low of 26%, according to polling firm BVA. And unless he's able to find a way to cool tempers, it could be his government that gets burned. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Let's get more on this now from Remi Piet, who joins us now from Miami. He's a research associate at the University of Miami's European Union Centre. Welcome back to the program, Remi. So there's no doubt that this fuel hike has hurt consumers across France, particularly truck drivers. Prices have risen by almost a quarter over the last 12 months. What does Emmanuel Macron want to achieve with this policy? Tell us more about his objectives here. Is it just about saving the environment?
Well, in the short term, definitely Macron was very unlucky in the sense that he actually increased those taxes at a moment where there was a hike in oil prices, and so a hike in price for everyday citizens to go and fuel their tank. And so obviously the ripple effect was led to a lot of unpopularity among the French population. What Macron tries to achieve here is to move forward towards an ecological transition, which is one of the bases of his political program of moving towards a post-carbon economy, providing more incentive towards shifting towards electric cars or means of transportation and production that would be more environmentally friendly. And it's something that is makes sense, obviously, in terms of politically and economically in the long run, but it's very hard for everyday citizens that have trouble being able to pay all their bills and face the cost of life at the end of the month to be able to accept and change their means of transportation and consumption.
Do you think Emmanuel Macron seriously misjudged how the public would react to this diesel price hike? And is there a chance that he might even review it or even reverse it?
And it did had a misinterpretation in the way that the everyday citizens would actually react to it. And it was very hard to try to forecast the reaction from those yellow jackets that they call themselves, because it's not a reaction from a political party or a workers' union. It's actually an everyday citizen that doesn't have a clear leadership. They just elected 8 members to represent themselves, and they're really everyday citizens, from a truck driver to a school teacher. I mean, very, very different and diverse movement. So it was hard for him to forecast this. His popularity now is very low, but that's the case of most French politicians. I mean, as French citizens, we tend to have a very ambivalent relation with our leaders, and we can always criticize them. So his popularity is low today, but at the same time, when you look at the most popular political figure in France, is someone backing Nicolas Hulot, is someone backing actually all this environmental transition, ecological transition. So all these movements lately are very ambivalent and contradictory.
So do you think that Emmanuel Macron will stick by this policy? I mean, we've seen protests erupt recently over his other reforms, such as the cut to the public service, but they haven't been as violent as what we've seen now. Given the scenes that we have been seeing with these fuel protests, do you think he'll stick by his policy?
So there's a few things here. The violence is actually coming from a very small minority of extreme right movement that actually are using the contestation to try to break, different stores and so on. So it's not, I mean, the movement and very, very popular movement is actually very peaceful, but unfortunately it's being hijacked by, extreme right movements. But when you're looking at whether Macron is going to stick to his policies, he's going to stick to this, strategy towards the long run of transitioning the French economy towards more environmentally friendly measures. Yes, but he's going to do a series of different reforms. He has started already, in the sense that, for example, he abandoned the idea of having some tolls entering the cities. That was something that is already existing right now in London, for example, and was being studied for Paris and other large cities in Paris and in France. That's something that has been abandoned. At the same time, he's also moving back towards having a specific taxation on large trucks for truck drivers. So there are a series of different reforms to modify his policies, but he will move forward towards this strategy of environmental transition, because it is the basis of his political engagement that we've seen through the Paris Agreement on climate change, and something that he wants to prepare the French society and economy towards a post-carbon economy of the 21st century. Yes.
Okay, Remi Piet in Miami. We'll have to leave it there, but thank you as always.